The Mentor Board of Education organizational meeting is now called to order. Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Here.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Tuttle?
Here.
Ms. Jisling?
Present. Will you please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we're going to, in accordance with Section 3313.14 of the Ohio Revised Code, the Board of Education shall organize by electing one of its members president for a term of 1 year. Any nominations?
I nominate Ginny Jeschling.
Second.
Thank you. I accept the nomination and appreciate your support.
So we need a roll call.
We need a, Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. In accordance with Section 3313.14 of the Ohio Revised Code, the Board of Education shall organize by electing one of its members vice president for the term of 1 year. Do I have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mary Briner, please.
Second.
Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. At this time, we need to reappoint OSBA Legislative Liaison, OSBA Student Achievement Liaison, and Mentor Schools Foundation representatives. And I have been doing the Student Achievement Liaison. I'd be happy to continue. Mr. Tuttle, you've been doing legislative?
I'd like to continue doing that.
Alrighty. And Mary, you've been doing Mentor Schools Foundation?
Do you want to do it, Sally?
I don't care, I can do it, yes.
Okay, so Mrs. Miller will be doing that. Do you need to call the roll?
No.
No, okay. Now, we'd like to establish a place and time for our regular meetings of the Board of Education in accordance with Section 3313.15 of the Ohio Revised Code. We shall fix a time and date for holding monthly meetings. It's recommended that regular meetings be set for 7 p.m. on the second Tuesday of each month, unless otherwise noted. And
Yep, I have just a couple items on this. Would like to suggest we move the regular meetings to Paradigm, if that's acceptable to everybody, instead of here.
we need a
You don't want to?
I didn't
Like
like
it here?
sitting on that stage thing. Can
Okay.
we sit on the ground?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll sit on
Or
chairs on the floor.
I would agree with that.
But you're okay with having it over there?
Oh, yeah, it
Just
doesn't,
on the
I didn't like
Actually, not
sitting on
having the
that
stage would be a little bit easier.
stage.
for
I would
setup.
prefer to sit on the ground, but,
Okay,
okay.
all right.
And see.
If you're asking me, I mean,
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
So we need,
The second thing I would need is I'd like to ask the board to consider changing the March meeting. The regular board meeting would fall during our spring break, and I'm going to be out.
so we need a motion for both.
We can make that all part of the
All
one
one
motion.
motion?
And do you have a proposed date for the
Well,
March meeting?
A week later would be ideal,
The
but I don't. I
21st
think
would be
Sally's gonna
the
miss it.
third Tuesday of the month rather than the second Tuesday, March 21st.
I won't be in town on March 21st, but you can have the meeting without me.
Do we have to set that now, or can we
We can
kind of
move
talk
it
about
later.
schedules
Sure.
in February or something?
That's
Well,
fine.
That's a good idea.
We'll keep it as March 14th for tonight's action
Yeah.
with the understanding we'll canvass the board and look for an alternative date to the spring break meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we just need a motion to change our venue.
And
And a
to
second.
establish the place and time, yes.
Place and
both
time.
meetings.
So moved.
Second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. And number 9, establishing our Board of Education Service Fund for 2017. Is that, do we need just a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. We need to provide for employment of legal counsel for the boards, for the Board of Education. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. We need an approval of membership to the Ohio School Boards Association for 2017.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second?
Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. And we need an approval of membership to the Ohio School Boards Association Legal Assistance Fund for 2017.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. And we now need to approve membership to the National School Boards Association for 2017.
So moved.
Second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. We need appointment of a hearing officer.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. We need appointment of a compliance officers.
So moved?
Second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. We need to authorize the superintendent to establish class fees, student fees, and other appropriate fees.
So moved.
Second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. And now we need to authorize compensation for some miscellaneous duties performed by certified and classified staff members.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. We need authorization for the Director of Business Operations to advertise for bids pursuant to Section 3313.46 of the Ohio Revised Code.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. Next, we need to authorize the treasurer to file real estate complaints.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. Next, we need to request advance payment of funds from the county treasurer.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. Next, we need to authorize for submission of grants and funding programs.
So moved.
Second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. Next, we need to authorize the treasurer to maintain petty cash and change funds.
So moved.
Second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. Next, we need to authorize selected student activity program contracts.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. Next, we need to authorize non-salary remuneration for employees.
So moved.
Second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. Next, dispensing with separate resolutions to approve checks.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes. Finally, we need to authorize blanket purchase orders.
moved.
So, second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes?
Ms. Jesling?
Yes. And that
We need a
completes,
motion and a
One more.
second to
we
adjourn.
need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jesling?
Yes. And our annual organizational meeting is now adjourned. The Mentor Board of Education tax budget hearing is called to order. And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Here?
Ms. Miller?
Here?
Mr. Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Tuttle?
Here.
Ms. Jesling?
Present.
Windy day.
Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Mr. Wilson, turn it
Yes.
over to you.
Thank you. Annually, Chapter 5705 of the Ohio Revised Code requires us to conduct a public hearing of the tax budget. This process predates the Great Depression of the 1920s and 30s and was based on the premise that there were local governments that did not need all the previously authorized tax revenues. So every local government's required to hold a hearing, present a budget to justify the collection of taxes for the coming year. Following this hearing tonight and any public comments we may receive, we will ask the board for an adoption as part of the regular board meeting for filing with the Lake County Budget Commission. Because of the unique nature of this and how times have evolved, our needs certainly justify the collection of the previously authorized taxes. And in fact, we use our 5-year forecast as a starting point and then recognize there's deferred maintenance and capital spending that could occur if more funds were available, both in the general fund and the permanent improvement fund, those two funds that receive tax revenue. So as we've done in past years, we recognize some of that deferred need just in the event there would be unanticipated tax revenues from delinquent taxes, TIF agreements, or some other source. We want to ensure that we could receive full benefit of the community support. Nothing in this document would require a tax increase or a change in the taxes paid by our citizens to support our school district, but rather justifies a continuation of tax collections from the past. The document is one that we're required to fill out in the format prescribed by the Lake County Budget Commission and is very brief. My last comment would be this is a regulatory process we go through and not part of the actual planning of our forecasting or budgeting model, that the budget process will start in the spring based upon the 5-year fiscal projections that have been adopted and will be much more precise than this document. So that concludes my brief comments, and Madam President, if you would open it for any public comments.
Does anybody have questions or comments? Anybody from the public have questions or comments? We call for a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
This is to adjourn, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Bill. Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Jesling?
Yes. And we are adjourned until 7 o'clock. All righty. The January 10th, 2017 regular meeting of the Mentor Exempted Village Board of Education is called to order. This meeting is being held in accordance with Section 3313.15 of the Ohio Revised Code. Mr. Wilson, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Here.
Ms. Miller?
Here?
Mr. Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Tuttle?
Here.
Ms. Jesling?
Present. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you please join me in a moment of silence in memory of Sophia Bionde, our fourth grader from Fairfax. Thank you so much. I would like to welcome everyone to the January 10th, 2017 regular meeting of the Mentor Exempted Village Board of Education. Prior to this evening, each board member has received for their review and consideration the agenda and materials associated with each agenda item for the board's approval via the district's paperless Board of Education agenda system, Board Docs. The public can access the agenda through the school district's website. The agenda is available through the district's website for public viewing the Sunday prior to the board meeting. Board members have the opportunity to call the superintendent and chief financial officer for information concerning agenda items and to request, if needed, additional information. There are 2 places on the agenda when the board entertains comments from the community. The first hearing of the public is dedicated to those who wish to address the board on agenda items only. The second hearing of the public is dedicated to those who wish to address the board on any subject, whether it is an item on the agenda or another issue. When addressing the board, please state your name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please address questions to the president. This meeting is being televised on a delayed basis and will be shown on Time Warner Cable Channel 96.96 in Mentor and Channel 96.22 in Mentor-on-the-Lake. This meeting is also being videotaped and will be shown on our YouTube channel, Cardinal TV, Mentor, Ohio. Please place your mobile telephones on silent mode during the meeting. First, do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 13th, 2016 as corrected?
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jesling?
Yes. Would anyone from the public like to speak on agenda items at this time? Thank you. And Mr. Miller, the superintendent's report and recommendations.
Thank you. Madam President and members of the board, I have the following recommendations and recommend approval of consent agenda item 5A1 through 5A5.
So moved.
Second?
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jesling?
Yes.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, January is School Board Recognition Month. The entire Mentor Schools community thanks you for everything that you do to make this school system so successful. Tonight, we have students with us from Hopkins Elementary, and they have a presentation for you. I hope they enjoyed their snow/ice day. Sorry you still kind of had to come into school tonight, but we are glad you're here and appreciate moms and dads and everybody being here as well. So I'm going to turn it over to our principal at Hopkins, Mrs. Miley, so they can begin the presentation.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Miller, and Mr. Wilson. In accordance with Governor John Kasich and Lieutenant Governor Mary Taylor's proclamation, School Board Recognition Month is January. Hopkins Elementary would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your leadership and support of Mentor Public Schools. According to the Ohio School Boards Association, the theme for this year is Leading the Way for Education. The following is an excerpt from OSBA's recognition for our school boards that describes how their leadership affects us. So school board members are ordinary people who have extraordinary dedication to our public schools. Being an effective school board member is no easy task, particularly in today's climate of change and challenge. School board members need to be knowledgeable about many complex education and social issues and carry out initiatives and directives from both federal and state governments. To add to these demands of governing our public schools, they give countless hours of personal time. A public board of education is a legislative body of citizens elected locally by their communities. The school board works closely with parents, educational professionals, and community members to create the educational vision that we want for our students. It then turns goals and defines results, sets the course of action for adequate and equitable education program for all students. The school board is accountable to the public. It is responsible for assuring that to the public that the money allocated to the public schools is providing a good return on the investment. Through dedicated, responsible endeavors, school board members serve the public interests in public education and serve the needs of our kids. They ensure that the decisions about public schools are made as close to the needs of the communities as possible. Their public service is an excellent example for young and old alike to the tradition of volunteerism that is a hallmark of American society. Tonight, the following students from Hopkins have a special presentation to show our thanks for all you do. Special thanks to our Hopkins teachers, Miss Elam, Mrs. Hop, Mrs. Castor, and Mrs. Toot, who helped the students develop their project. I would like to introduce the following student leaders who are either members of our student council or student ambassadors. First up is Grady Horton, a second grader. Second is Ryan Hott, also second grade. Third, we have Emma St. Hilaire, a fifth grader. Fourth is Katie Lawson, also a fifth grader. Fifth, we have Kaden Risma, a fifth grader. Next, we have Annalise Horton, a fourth grader. Next is Eliana Risma, a fourth grader. And finally, Madison Andres, a fifth grader. So I will turn it over to them.
To our Mentor Board of Education. We are so thankful for that all that you do, from helping us to reading, writing, and too.
You support our learning with apps and iPads. Your dedication and commitment are ironclad.
We love Mentor Schools from K to 12, helping each Cardinal to discover themselves.
We are prepared for our life ahead, thanks to how you have led. Promoting creativity, participation, and connections, we are thankful for you and hope it shows in this reflection. From one cardinal to another, here's a house for a bird and his mother. Thank you for being the best of the best. No one can top you. You rise above the rest.
Sincerely, Hopkins Elementary 2017.
So the students have a little gift for you. The students in the school, we had some representatives from each classroom. They all painted some birdhouses with cardinals on them for you, and a copy of the poem as well. And then inside the envelope is a card with some pictures of the students painting the birdhouses for you. So thank you.
It's gonna hang in my office.
Thank you so much.
You give that to a bird.
Thank you for taking it off. Thank you.
Thank you. What a wonderful gift. Thanks. Thank you very much.
That was very nice. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Nice job, boys and girls. I think Mrs. Fuller's going to try to sneak you away and get a picture so you can kind of follow her. But thank you very much. Thank you,
Yes,
Mrs. Miley.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
These will look great in our yards.
attract some cardinals.
Our office, we know where I'm putting it.
All right, next, Madam President, members of the board, we have two groups of Mentor High School students who have won first and second place, which is awesome, for the 14th District in the Congressional App Challenge. Mr. Fetchick, Mr. Butterfield's here too, I think, and Mrs. Briner will make the presentation.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Miller and Mr. Wilson. Thank you for allowing me to present these outstanding Mentor Cardinals to you tonight. So I have to thank you, Mr. Miller, for that's a tough act to follow.
I agree.
The Congressional App Challenge is a national contest that aims to engage student creativity and encourage participation in STEM education, particularly in the computer science field of software engineering. This contest is a national initiative to increase student interest in pursuing highly skilled and highly in-demand career fields by inspiring students to cultivate an original idea of their own creation, and engage in the development of this product from start to finish. During the course of this contest, students here at Mentor High School worked collaboratively to produce a variety of apps to ultimately be judged by a panel of experts in the field directed by our Congressman David Joyce. This year's contest witnessed the creation of 650 original apps from 123 congressional districts, with over 2,152 students participating around the country. It is with great honor and excitement that the Mentor High School community tonight will be recognizing 5 of its own students for their achievements in this contest as both first and second place winners for the Ohio's 14th District. Is Kylie here? Kylie, can you come on up? Kylie partnered with Jack Lynch. Jack is on the basketball team, and they're over at Shaker Heights tonight. Hopefully they're winning. That's right. So we'll have Kylie come up. Selected by Congressman Joyce as the second place winning team, Kylie Linville and Jack Lynch built a web-based app that focuses on analyzing forensic criminal data by location and geocoding each crime scene in the data set to precisely pinpoint each location on the map. This app can be used to make communities safer by allowing law enforcement to redirect their resources into areas of high activity. So we have the video that was submitted to Congressman Joyce up for you right now.
The main purpose of our app, Crime Scenes in Chicago, is meant primarily to educate people on crimes and where they are located in the city. There is also another feature that will allow people to communicate on a forum and discuss any new crimes that take place in the city.
This allows tourists from outside cities, businessmen and women, and even everyday citizens to stay safer in a city and know where not to go.
When you open the application, there's a map of Chicago with a bunch of red dots. The dots each represent one section of the city. When you click on the red dot, it zooms in so that you see orange and yellow dots. These represent the frequency of the crimes along with the number of crimes in that area. If you click on one of these dots, it zooms in again, and there are now a bunch of blue dots. You can click on the blue dot, and it will give a description of the theft along with where it located. Then you can click on the top right screen where it says Login. This takes you to a login page. For example, here I will log in using the username admin, and I will use the password. But we see, for example, that when we try and log in, it tells us that the username and or password are incorrect. So if we input the correct password, which is top secret, we see that it allows us to this new page, and when we scroll down, there is now a public forum. Here we can insert new information regarding a crime that has just taken place so that we can communicate with others about what happens in a city. So for example, we can say that I was pickpocketed on the corner of 4th and 18th Street. So then after we do that, we can click post, and now it is in the public forum for other people to view and hopefully stay out of that area.
The goal of this app is to help keep people safe, not just in Chicago, but other cities as well. Future versions of our application will include more cities and other forums for people to communicate in. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Second place winners. Jacob, Gareth, and Justin, are you here? Come on up.
Very impressive. Mr. Shaw. How do we download that?
So where can I get this? Go ahead. Can I put that on my phone? Boy, we come up with that app and sell it for $2.90.
Selected by Congressman Joyce as the first place winning team, Jacob Carlson, Gareth Jobling, and Justin Conley built an app that helps drivers keep their attention on the road by disabling texting services on their phone while en route to their destination. The aptly named Drive Safe app incorporates a simple user interface, passcode security features, and real-time GPS location tracking to prevent texting while driving. This app was created with MIT App Inventor and can be installed on any Android-compatible device. We'll see the video of our first place winner.
Hello, I am Jake Carlson.
I'm Justin Conley.
And I'm Gareth Jobling, and we're the makers of Drive Safe. Drive Safe is a breakthrough app that will help reduce texting and driving. This app is simple and easy to use. First, you pin your destination to the map and then enter a passcode. This passcode prevents you from opening your messages until you arrive at your destination. It also serves as a way to turn off Drive Safe in case of an emergency situation. When you arrive at your destinations, your messages are unlocked. We will now demonstrate how to successfully enter your location.
Hello, this is Jake Carlson, and welcome to the demonstration of Drive Safe. Drive Safe, we have a goal of setting out to create safe driving, so here we go. So first, you'll start off by setting your location. So now that we're on the location screen, we'll add a new location. For my example, I'll enter the address of my school. So first you go street address, then city, then the 2-letter state code, and then zip code. So I typed the address out off video just to save time. But here's the address, so now we'll click done, then we'll click submit. Now we'll pick the location. So now the only location we have in is the school, because this is the first time the app is being run. So now, if we wanted, we could view the location. We'll let that load real quick. So here it is. Now we'll go back, and now we can start to finalize the trip. So now that we have our location, we're getting closer to being able to drive. One of the last steps we'll have to complete is entering a passcode. This passcode is very helpful because it will keep you from being able to go out and exit the app. So for now, we'll just set the password to 1234. This app only allows you to do number passwords. So for example, a letter would not input. Now that we have our password and our passwords are both the same, we will be able to start our trip. Now this is the screen you will see when you are driving. We'll go through 2 scenarios: how to finish the trip and how to stop the trip during an emergency. So first we'll stop with the emergency. So you'll hit stop trip. Now it will prompt you to enter a passcode. This is the passcode that you entered on the last screen as a way of getting out of the trip you are in. So we'll submit. So now you're back to this screen where you can enter any new information or change anything that you could have messed up. So now we'll start the second scenario where you finish your trip entirely. So the finish trip button will calculate whether or not you're close enough to your destination. It uses longitude and latitude and then calculates the points based on the address you're traveling to and your phone's GPS signal. So if it did not read correctly, you would get a notification that said, "Hey, you're not there, keep your eyes on the road." And if you have reached your destination, this is what you will see. And you'll head back to the main screen. So in version 2.0 of the app, it would feature various things such as actually locking you in and even sending notifications to people who have texted you saying that you're driving and cannot respond. With Drive Safe by your side, you're safe from those dangerous habits that could lead you into injury, costing money, time, and possibly your life.
We know that some people will not use this app, but those who are tempted to text and drive will find this app very helpful. This app is an amazing tool to help you keep away from those unsafe driving habits and will eventually help you as you conquer the roads ahead of you.
First place app. Thank you.
Outstanding. Proud of you guys. Great job.
Great mind.
Thinking the same. I'm ready to get 99 cents for it. Go to the app store. I know people that could use that.
Yes.
A lot of parents may want that for.
I'm thinking like it could record, and then you could get a like a digital readout of where your kids are at, and if they use the app or not. That's like version 3.0. Sorry. At this time, back on the agenda, I'm recommending approval of agenda item C1 related to certified staff, as well as C2 and C3, both related to human resource matters.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Gislin?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my part of the agenda.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, as the board knows, for the second year now, our career technical program has purchased a residential property within the school district to be a learning lab for our career tech students. And what we have found in our first 2 years' experience is that oftentimes it's a very competitive markets for homes in our price range, with the structural condition of the home being sound, but the need for trade work for our students. And we lost out on several opportunities given the need to come to the board first to receive permission to place an offer. So we've worked with our attorneys and with Matt and with Jason Crow to craft a proposed resolution that would authorize me to make a offer, to make a down payment, but it would have to be contingent upon final board action ratifying the transaction and the sale. Our expectation is, as we've done in the past, we would communicate with you in advance of any attempts to purchase a home, and this resolution would set a limit of a $40,000 maximum down payment that could be offered contingent on your subsequent action. So this will allow us to be a little bit more nimble in the marketplace now that we've established the success of this program and the desire to continue it from year to year.
Will you have the authority to put down any earnest money that might have to go with the, they usually ask you for $1,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it includes that, the earnest money with the initial offer, yes.
Are you capping a purchase at $40,000?
No, that's the earnest money / down payment.
Okay.
Would not exceed that. Our first two homes have, one was under $100,000, the second home was over $100,000. Again, we want to be competitive when we find the right property for our students to gain full advantage of their program. So it gives us a little bit of flexibility, and if we find that we can adjust that number after a couple more years, we would certainly be respectful of it. But we're hoping that this, as we're leading into spring, the other lesson learned was to start earlier for the house hunt for next year. I think the first year we wanted to ensure that we could sell the improved home relatively quickly and use those funds then for the second year. We've been able to create a program budget that will allow for purchasing the home before the previous year's has been sold. So this authorization actually will allow us to start in March, early April, to be in the marketplace.
And the program has been such a successful one. The students have done a phenomenal job, and the instructor has been amazing. So, well done.
Great hands-on experience.
Absolutely.
Can I, this is just the offer, the only money that would be paid out would be you would have to pay out the earnest money.
Yes, and
Okay.
again, it's all contingent upon
Board
board ratification. Prior to even taking that first step, I would look to Matt to get his consent that this is a good program opportunity, and then work with the realtors.
How does this work, or how would this affect the consortium's budget? Or do we recoup our funds, or are we buying it?
Yeah, it's my understanding, and I'll defer to Matt for corrections, that this is a mentor program where we will accept consortium students to participate, and it's the standard bill back of the portion, but the first year's money we fronted, the proceeds from the sale remained with us to offset the cost of the improvements and to help fund the next down payment. So to the extent there's space available, a consortium student participates, it's the standard exchange of tuition money as with any other program. But
Okay.
the proceeds stay in Mentor. The initial purchase is a Mentor purchase, be in the name of our Board of Education.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
And now to Mr. Tuttle for the legislative report.
I'd like to defer to both Mr. Miller and Mr. Wilson to speak about House Bill 628. We had conversation, and both of them spoke to the issue at our last meeting. Representative Andrew Brenner has proposed this idea. I don't know how many people stand behind him. He was the only name on that bill at the time, but I'd like an update provided by Dan and
Sure.
Matt.
Go ahead, Mel.
I'll just explain first. The bill was introduced in the lame duck session of the legislature, which adjourned just before the holidays. A new session has convened for 2017. Bills do not carry over, so this bill will have to be reintroduced. This primary sponsor, Representative Brenner, indicated he wanted this on the books to generate discussion with an anticipation it would be reintroduced. His concept, as we discussed last month, is to remove local property tax collections and have a statewide property tax with all monies going to Columbus and then allocated through a formula set by the state. The experiences of the various derivative of foundation program distribution of funds dating back almost as far as the Great Depression have had a strong bias against suburban so-called property-rich districts such as ours, with a strong commercial base, with the Great Lakes Mall, and a strong residential housing market. So we would anticipate this would be more money going to Columbus than coming back to us as it relates to our current funding. Our professional organizations, Matt's organization, my organization, ones the board belong to, the people that I'm networking with are telling me that some form of this bill will be reintroduced. There's no expectation it will be adopted as presented, but it is a very serious effort to say we need to significantly change how we're funding public education. And as I read tea leaves, and as I've shared with you in many of my board updates, there's a variety of legislative initiatives both in Ohio and in the Great Lakes region that would also significantly change voucher programs and charter school funding programs that, to me, is a subset of this discussion. So I remain on high alert. I think our professional organizations remain on high alert. But as with any fundamentally drastic change in fundings, it will be something that's a slow process we anticipate. That's what I'm hearing from my networks and my association. I know Matt has other groups he's been involved with that also have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah, very, very similar, Dan. I think VASA is taking a look at it in terms of Representative Brenner is frustrated that he hears about different things in Ohio, whether it's the voucher movement, whether it's school levies, and feels that if he puts everything into one bill, he'll have the opportunity to weigh in on it. Is sort of what I was told. So we'll see if that's true. He's been pro-charter in the past, so I think this is part of that movement as well. I guess too, I would follow up with, even though he introduced it in lame duck, and it's got to go away and be reintroduced, we are going to get a budget from our governor here at the end of the month. So it'll be interesting, I think, for all of us to see if any of the items, some of the items might have been floated out in lame duck and might be part of the budget. Who knows? That wouldn't surprise me.
Can you tell us how much, I think there was an estimate, wasn't there, of how much our funding would drop?
Oh boy, Matt's memory's better than mine. I believe it was, the first simulation was corrected. The second one, I think, as it was originally introduced, we would lose $4 million in annual tax revenue.
And you caught the first one was wrong, and you said that doesn't seem right to me, and then like a week later, they corrected it to what you had thought.
Yes. So the immediate loss to us would be approximately $4 million.
I think that was on the low end, maybe.
And who knows where it could go from there?
Yes.
Yeah, the other thing too is this is our governor's last budget, so if they want to make some big changes, now might be a time for them to put something in. But I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you. And has Representative Rogers made any statement about where he is on that?
I haven't heard anything per se from John. I know Schiavone from a little bit south of us talked a little bit about it. That's the only thing that I've seen.
I've not heard.
Could we draft a letter to send to Representative Rogers, just kind of reinforcing our position?
Yeah, or all the legislators maybe?
Yes.
All of them?
Oh, yeah, in our area.
All in the district.
So Representative Young, Senator Eklund.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
That we have
Representative
grave
Rogers.
concerns.
And Kenny Yuko,
And yes, Representative Yuko.
Yeah, our
Senator.
senators and our
Or
congressmen.
Senator, thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Because that would.
Thank you.
It's important to speak up before more happens. Okay. Was there anything else?
That's it. That's.
I had real quick, if you're finished with your part, Tom,
Go ahead.
on legislative, I just want to mention too, as I mentioned in one of my updates, that the at the federal level, the transition team is working right now, and what I'm hearing, two priorities would be examining each civil rights changes, each state's civil rights changes as it pertains to schools, some of the bathroom bill issues that have come up. That's one of the first items. The second item that I'm hearing is, and Dan might have to back me up on numbers, is that the feds are taking a look at reallocating Title I funds for vouchers, and what impact would that be? And I think, Dan, we get about $500,000 to $600,000.
Just over
for Title I.
$600,000 annually out of Title I funds, and of course the trick is there are mandated services we have to provide. Title I is for economically disadvantaged students, and there are mandated services. If the mandates stay but the money goes away, that's just a cost shift to us. And even if the mandates go away, we still have the reality of certain challenges economically disadvantaged families have in being ready for school and successful in school.
I would just think that's just going to hurt kids. No, I'm done.
More of the same. Alrighty. And so back to Mr. Wilson, your report and recommendations. From
Yes.
Chief Financial Officer.
It's recommended the financial statements for the month of December 2016 be approved and placed on file for audit.
So moved. Second.
Would you
And
call the roll?
I will just say, different than my colleague Tim Kane, the Director of Office of Budget Management, who's indicating revenues are lagging and the state believes they're seeing a recession on the future. Our statements show that we're right on track to our budget with both revenues and expenses, and believe we're going to have a successful year unless something totally unexpected occurs.
Very good. Can you call the roll, please, Mr. Wilson?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
It's recommended the Board of Education approve the investment transactions listed in Exhibit 6-B.
So moved.
Second.
And would you call the roll, Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
It's recommended the Board of Education approve the interfund transfers listed in Exhibit 6-C.
So moved. Second.
And would you call the roll, Mr. Wilson?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
It's recommended the Board of Education approve the appropriation modifications listed in Exhibit 6-D.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
It's recommended the Board of Education approve the supplemental appropriations listed in Exhibit 6-E.
So moved. Second.
Would you call the roll, Mr. Wilson?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
And consistent with the tax budget hearing conducted a few moments ago, we're recommending the Board of Education approve the 2018 tax budget and direct that it be filed with the Lake County Budget Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
And it's recommended the Board of Education approve a resolution to recertify tax rates for tax year 2016 that are to be collected in 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller, or I'm sorry, Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
That completes my items this evening.
Do we have unfinished business, or those would go to you?
None?
Unfinished business? Mr. Wilson, you had a resolution for us?
Yes, under new business, as you know, the Lake County Public Library is organizationally under the umbrella of the school district. The Board of Education appoints trustees, approves their budgets, has to authorize any tax request. They are required to serve the geographic area of the school district, even though they're called the Mentor Public Library. They're required to provide services to the exact same community. One of the important jobs of the Board of Trustees is to hire an executive director to lead the library. Lynn Hawkins has been the library director for the past 13 years, is retiring January 31st, as we know. And we're asking that the board recognize her 13 years of service and the success the public library has had over that time with embracing technology to enhance access and use of the public library, and to just honor her for her service to our community and to our youth. So we're asking that the Board of Education adopt this resolution that will be presented to her at her last board meeting later this month.
So moved. Second.
And Mr. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jensling?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Mr. Miller, you had a couple
I just had
items.
2 quick items for the board. We are excited to announce that Mentor will be hosting the Spring League of Innovative Schools meeting right here in our district. That'll be a national event, 250 participants from across the country, either school districts or companies, or through Digital Promise, which has offices in Washington, D.C. and San Francisco. It's going to be a 4-day event, April 25th through the 28th. Big to do, and we just found out just about last week, and we're having a planning call with the Digital Promise team tomorrow, and we're excited about showing off what our kids are doing here in Mentor, what our teachers are doing across the district, and it's a big thing. Last event, or last meeting was held in Baltimore. The one before that would have been San Diego. So this is not a small affair, and we're excited that we got it right here. And it'll be billed for as Mentor and Cleveland too, so greater Cleveland. So more information to follow. And that's, again, through Digital Promise with our partnership as a member of the League of Innovative Schools. The second thing, I'd ask you to take a look at your calendars. I'd like to propose to the board we have a work session to discuss facilities and building usage, preferably end of January or beginning of February. Maybe propose like a Saturday morning, if that's not out of the realm, but I am open.
While everybody's looking at their calendars, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing that recognition to mentor for the League of Innovative Schools. That it is a wonderful opportunity. We're so proud of all that our staff and students have achieved, and appreciate your leadership and the money to make all this happen. That there's a lot to share. That's very exciting.
Always like when our kids and staff get to talk about what they're doing. So, but thanks.
And also, hats off to get our state superintendent to visit us last week. That was wonderful. That was very nice. Very exciting.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll propose a date and time, and you guys shoot me down, and we'll go to the next one. January 28th at 8 a.m. to Saturday.
I can do that.
Not good for me.
We make it 8:30?
It's
Yeah,
not.
8:30 is fine.
I like that.
Oh, that's not good for you?
Jenny says, do I hear no?
Are we talking AM or PM?
How about, Tom has a conflict with that date. How about the following Saturday, February the 4th?
I'm good.
I'm good for that one.
Anybody else?
February 4th?
Yeah.
Dan?
Yes. I won't be available until probably 10:15 or 10:30. I coach a second grade basketball
Really?
league, and our games are either 7, 8, or 9 a.m. on Saturday mornings.
Okay.
And that's a 9 a.m. game, so I could, they take about an hour. I could do 10, 15, 10:30.
Let's do 10:30.
What kind of time
10:30?
frame do you
Yeah,
want?
how much time?
What do you, how long?
I'm hoping 2 hours.
What time are you available? 10:30?
Yeah.
10:30,
10:30, all right?
12:30?
Yeah.
That's
That all
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Jenny likes it better.
Of course, then we had one day I'm going down to the RBC at 10:30, so.
Oh, it
But we'll
goes
be,
to
12:30.
yeah, we should be
I'm
fine, till
loving it.
10:30
First
works
year
for me.
coach, fifth and sixth grade.
So February the 4th at 10:30.
Yeah.
Thanks
Mhm.
for that. That was it.
Sorry, Matt, what's this work session about again?
It would be building usage facilities.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
And we'll be here.
Yes, we'll be in the Cardinal Room, not Paradigm.
Okay.
I'll
Very
put something
good.
out as a reminder.
Usage.
10:30 on the 4th.
Okey dokey.
Thanks.
Alrighty, and that's it for new business? And hearing of the public on agenda items or non-agenda items? Mhm.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Martin at 8194 Baythorn Drive. First of all, as a resident of Mentor, I'd like to personally thank you guys. It's amazing that what you offer. I have 2 sons in the school, a junior here at Mentor High School and in 6th grade at Mentor Memorial. And the amount of help that the teachers give, amount of extracurricular activities that you guys offer and what you guys do, it's truly amazing to be a part of the community. And within a great community, you have to have a good tax base, as you mentioned earlier. You have to have police, you have to have fire, and you have to have schools, and that's one of the things that makes Mentor so great. I was originally up here about 13 months ago, and what it dealt is my older son has been on an IEP since he was first diagnosed by Mrs. Grandini and Mrs. Kish at Hopkins. And then Principal Linda Elegante put together an IEP for him, which we follow that program since then. It's been followed by Larry Luciano, Christine Miley, who's been working with my other son, and all the way through Memorial, and the teachers are unbelievable what they do. It's just like, I can't thank them enough. When it comes time for finals, if they determine that my son needs extra help, what time school starts, it's pretty early for some kids, they'll meet my son here at 6:15 in the morning to give them the help they need. And it's to try to get them to the next level. As we all know, we're trying to move our kids through a system to educate them, to treat them, and to be adults that could be leaders in society. Now, one of the things that I was here, the main thing I was here for about 13 months ago was my son has been involved with hockey. And as people know with kids with different IEP issues, is that it tends to go hand in hand, one aspect of their life with another aspect of their life. My son does well in school, he does well in hockey. Does well in hockey, does well in school. He's not the greatest hockey player, but he was asked to play at 3 different private schools here on the east side. One is one of the leaders in Ohio. One went to this Final Four a couple of years ago, and they all said the same thing. Kid's a good kid. He'll do anything I tell him to do. I want him on my team because I will make him into a hockey player. We'll make him well-rounded. My son made a decision to come to Mentor because he always dreamed of being dressed in red and playing in red. He also knew going into the 9th grade that he needed the help that these other schools didn't seem like they could offer. Some even said, "Oh, we can't do that," until they found out that he played hockey. And says, "Oh, no, we could take care of that for you." And that's never been the way in Mentor. You guys have always been straightforward, honest. You laid everything out. Here's point A, here's point B. When it comes time to hockey in the hockey program, though, it's not always cut and dry. And there's different issues where certain things are promised, certain things are taken away. For example, last year and this year, my son has been on JV and varsity, which is fine. He likes a challenge. He likes playing. There's no doubt about that. The problem is the schedule. JV meets right after school, or pardon me, varsity meets right after school. JV's 9 o'clock at night. On a school night, my son doesn't get home until after 11 o'clock at night, for example. I'm just trying to use this to relate it to people here in the audience. It's kind of hard to get home at 11 o'clock at night. About 11:15 usually rolls in, eat, take a shower, and get back to get extra help at 6:15. And then it's where it's not cut and dry, where he can relate to it. And this has been going on 2 years. We met with Mr. Casella, we met with Mr. Miller, and I'm just giving as an example. And we're trying to work our way through this. The problem is, which I'm leading up to, and I'll finish, I know I'm running out of time, but is that it's affecting his grades. And I noticed that it's affecting other kids on just this team. And my point is with these kids that need help and need to be more structured in order to get these kids through their different sports, it goes hand in hand. How are we going to get them to the next level? My son earlier in the year, 3-3 with the IEP team, and then he, we think, received just over a 2. So it was a full point drop, and the same thing happened his sophomore year. The problem is now he's a junior. ACT, give you an idea how dedicated my son is, walking out to take his ACT. I said, "Son, make sure you take your time to study, make sure you do what's right, answer the question." "Dad, I'm afraid I'm missing hockey practice. Is he going to use it against me?" He's got a 3rd lower on his ACT. So we're at the point in life where now it's affecting later on in life. And I know by talking to other parents on the team that it's affecting their kids also. So if it's affecting hockey team, it must be affecting other teams here and other students in athletics. So whatever that you guys think that you can do, please let myself know, let my wife know. My wife's actually at the hockey board meeting tonight. We'll be more than willing to have you sit on an IEP meeting with the rest of the teachers. We'll be more than happy to head anything that you want us to head. But when you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years of age, it could be severely detrimental to a young individual and where they're going to be leading on further in society. But I thank you once again for your time. You guys do a great job. And anything, like I said, that you could think of that myself, my wife could do, you guys are more than welcome to attend an IEP meeting with these teachers, because the teachers in this school system truly are unbelievable in what they do for these kids and the development of these kids. I can't thank you enough. But thank you once again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks. Any other from the audience? I believe we are going to adjourn to an executive session, and we are going to be discussing the superintendent's mid-year evaluation and compensation of employees. We do not anticipate a vote when we return.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Wilson, would you call the roll?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Ms. Jessen?
Yes. Thank you. And we are adjourned?
We're recessing.
Recessing to executive session.